Hey y'all, this is your girl Megan. Welcome back to the Hood Astro Queen, to all of my returning subscribers. However, if this is your first time joining me on today, be sure to hit that subscribe button because you know you want to. And today I'm coming to you guys once more with another celebrity birth chart reading as requested. And today we're going to be talking about Miss Adrienne Bailon, or Bailon, however you say her name. She is 1/3 of the 3LW girls. Well, they're called 3LW. But then also she was in the Cheetah Girls. And then as of recently, she's actually a co-host on this talk show called The Real, which I don't too much care for. But I mean, I find it kind of lame and corny. But you know, they out here winning Emmys and shit. So they're doing something right. Somebody likes it. All right. So I'm not even mad at that. And she recently got married to a guy named Israel Houghton. He's a gospel singer or a gospel recording artist. And a lot of people are interested in the dynamics of their relationship because this marriage came, like, it was very sudden. And then just the year before, she was in a whole engagement with someone else. I believe his name was Lenny Santiago or something of that effect. He was a producer, or he had some type of role. He played some type of role in the music industry. I think he worked for Rockefeller Records or Def Jam Records or something like that. Oh, all I know is he worked with Jay-Z. Okay. And that engagement kind of just went straight to hell, and she just got married to someone else. And a lot of people were like, oh, like that's, like, wow. And then you look at him and he's not somebody that you would typically envision her with. So it's just a lot of questions. And a lot of people are interested in the dynamics of their relationship, as I stated. And so I figured that would be a pretty interesting reading because I don't even really know a lot about Adrienne myself outside of, what I just stated. So let's go ahead and get started. So Adrienne Bailon was born on October 24th, 1983 at 12:10 a.m. in Manhattan, New York. Quick question, like, how does the internet get a hold of celebrity birth times? Like, do they put the information on the internet, or like what's going on here? I've just always wondered that. So y'all let me know in the comment section. But that's besides the point. So she is actually a Scorpio sun, Taurus moon, and Leo ascendant, which is not surprising, especially that Leo ascendant portion. A lot of celebrities typically have very prominent Leo energy in their charts. And it's no coincidence that Leo is the sign of the celebrity. All right. So I found that to be quite interesting. Now, I went and just looked up some videos, and like I said, kind of just did a little bit of research on Adrienne. And I looked at this video where she was talking about her relationship with Lenny. This is back when the show first started, I guess in their first couple of seasons. And there was this one episode, right, in particular, where she was talking about how they didn't do any PDA. Like she and her relationship, like, we don't do public displays of affection, and we just kind of don't, we stay away from that, because why do I have to commemorate my relationship by being all over you in public? Like, we should already know that we love each other. It shouldn't even take that. And then she was saying, like, she was in a relationship where people didn't even know she was with the guy romantically, because that's how hands off and like non-affectionate they were with one another. And I said, that's kind of interesting. So looking at her chart, Miss Adrienne has Aquarius on her seventh house, And I was like, oh my God, that explains it. Aquarius on the seventh house can manifest in a variety of ways. The first is a friend's first approach towards relationships, like somebody that you're best friends with, and then you kind of just gradually grow into an intimate relationship, which, just from looking at her relationship with this Israel Houghton guy, I feel like he fits that kind of that portion of that Aquarian energy. But it could also deal with a partner who has to maintain a very firm sense of identity and independence outside of their relationship. It can also deal with having a partner who is cold, unloving, and emotionally detached from the relationship, aka somebody who does not want to show PDA or any public display. I wouldn't even be surprised if he was kind of like that, emotionally distant behind closed doors either. That's very much Aquarius in the seventh house. It could also bring about a partner who is even like disloyal, straight up disloyal, and feels entitled to you, and maybe even entitled to your loyalty, but it doesn't always go both ways. It can also bring about a partner who is blessed or taken care of by way of the other person in the relationship, which I personally feel like might be Adrienne, because she does have a lot of themes of being a kept woman in her chart. But then finally, it can also bring about karmic experiences surrounding friends in the industry, maybe having fake friends, phony friends, former friends that turn into enemies. And it could go both ways. She could also be the fake one as well. And that made me think of like the 3LW situation, because the girls were together until they weren't. Like, I think they kicked out Notori, which is the pretty chocolate girl. They kicked her out, replaced her with someone else, and as rumor has it, they were colorists. And all of these years, I mean, it was just like this huge kind of ongoing drama. And so Notori didn't even make up with Adrienne until very, very recently. And I feel like a lot of it had to do with the girl, the promises, the chick with the list. What's her name? Keely. So it was just a lot going on. It was a lot of drama, and I think that's one thing everybody can agree on. So that definitely gave me like 3LW kind of, And the seventh house also deals with like business relationships, So that was pretty interesting. However, taking it back to her romantic relationship, it definitely described her relationship, her former relationship with her fiance, and it can point towards Adrienne naturally attracting men who are emotionally unavailable. So her seventh house lord, one of them anyway, because Aquarius is co-ruled by Uranus and Saturn, but her Uranus is at the 7th degree of Sagittarius, which is in her 5th house, okay? And this placement reinforces that theme of her being, I'm going to say, a kept woman. Like, obviously, we know she has a career for herself, and she's actually done pretty well in maintaining a career for herself within the industry. But it carries an energy signature of her attracting men who are more financially established, I'm going to say, than her. And it gives her a lot of these financial blessings by way of a partner. And it makes her rather heavy-handed and even, I would say, reckless with her spending with that Sagittarian energy. Uranus and Sagittarius, it's just in and of itself can produce a very destructive, impulsive, and reckless kind of behavior, depending on how it's aspected. But this is also reinforced with her Venus and Mars, her Virgo Venus and Mars squaring her Uranus, because Virgo is on her 2nd house. So that aspect can also potentially result in very sudden and drastic highs and lows in regards to her personal finances. It can also lead to losses through gambling and investments, because that 5th house does deal with gambling and investments. So, yeah, Miss Adrienne has expensive taste, all right? Her Uranus in the 5th house of Sagittarius also points towards her dating men within the music industry. That number 7 is because it's at the 7th degree. The number 7 is ruled by Neptune. It also reinforces her being with partners that have a difficult time remaining monogamous, because a lot of these men are going to be freedom seeking. Interesting thing. I mean, I don't think she ever mentioned anything about Lenny cheating on her, but when I was reading up doing my homework, I saw that Pudgy Israel Israel, her current husband. He actually had just gotten a divorce a few months or earlier that year, like prior to them getting married. And the reason why he got a divorce was because he cheated on his wife at the time. And I guess they just couldn't work past it, work through it. Side note, I don't think women should work through relationships after their husband cheats. Granted, I'm not married, so married women, you can handle your relationship how you want to handle it. Some people say, well, it's not that easy, and it's always the bitches who not married. But I feel like it's just, as a society, people expect women to work through infidelity. But if it ever happens the other way around, like, the man is gone, sis. He's not sticking around after you cheat on him. But that's just my personal opinion. However, it brings me back to this Sagittarian energy, especially with her, let's see, I don't think her Uranus is conjoined to her Jupiter. Is it making a conjunction? It actually is. Her Uranus is making a conjunction to her Jupiter. And her Neptune is in this house as well. It could deal with her dealing with men that are naturally kind of deceptive. And I can't stress enough that Jupiter energy, it makes everything bigger, and it can lead towards excess of like too much. And the fifth house does deal with sex. You know what I mean? So, on one hand, it can make Adrienne the type to have a very like fun-filled, idealistic, because Sagittarius is all about idealism. So like a fun, idealistic kind of relationship. It can make her somebody who like really loves to travel. Like she and her partners, they'll get up and hit the streets. They love that fun, freedom component of the relationship. But it's just like, it could also produce a guy who's like, it's kind of hard to get him to settle down. I'm not going to lie. Not going to lie. Also, that Sagittarius influence could deal with Adrienne attracting guys who she has a very strong spiritual or religious connection with, i.e. this gospel singer. So I thought that was pretty cool too. And then also with that number 7, her dating, like you can even interpret that as her dating a gospel singer. Now, when you take a look at the other co-ruler of Aquarius, which is Saturn, it is placed in her 4th house of Scorpio at the 6th degree. Now, this points towards there being certain elements of like there being like control issues, particularly so with her sun being conjoined to Saturn, okay, which can produce a marriage that is filled with power struggles. I'm talking about to the point of like OD, like perhaps she's being spied on. Like I wouldn't even be surprised if her husband, like I said, I don't know if it's this guy, but definitely Lenny, the way she described Lenny, I wouldn't even be surprised if he had cameras in the house. That is so sun conjoined to Saturn and Scorpio, like to, record her every move, or if he was just very like micromanaging of her. And this aspect could also possibly point towards there being possible abuse. It could deal with there being issues with joint finances. There's just that on that. Like she could have some issues with managing money, and that kind of reinforces this theme that I see in her chart of her not really being the best person as far as like money management goes. It could have been a source of contention within her relationship with Lenny. And at some point, it could even be a problem between she and Israel. And this aspect also represents her not having, or her, it's being kind of difficult for her to co-live with a partner, which is something else I found to be quite interesting, because when I was doing my homework, once again, I'm looking at, I was watching that impressive video that she did on her relationship with Lenny and versus her relationship with Israel. Adrienne said that she didn't have a key to Lenny's house or something like that. Like basically she was basically living with the man, but she did not have a key to his house. And she was talking about how humiliating that was. That is reflective of this sun conjoined to Saturn in the fourth house of Scorpio, because I mean the fourth house does deal with the home, and it could point towards a situation where Lenny, like I said, was very particular, very I mean, I'm just gonna say like anal retentive, and like kind of even ran the house like a damn like military. Like that's kind of how he ran the home life. And if he didn't want her to get something, she wasn't going to get it. Okay. This aspect could also point towards there being some sort of sexual dysfunction within the marriage. It also points towards there being, or her having a secret, I don't want to say a secret private life, but I am going to say that, especially with her being a Leo ascendant. Like there's a part of her identity and just who she is as a person that she kind of keeps hidden away from the public. She could be a completely different person behind closed doors. And this energy could kind of even go both ways, even though I'm kind of starting to get the vibe, just looking at other parts of her chart, that she's the one that this controlling behavior is aimed towards. So, yeah, there's that. This aspect can also point towards karmic and painful experiences surrounding emotional bonds, her emotional bonds with men. This could have been an issue that started with her father as well. And that abuse component, where I feel like she's been abused, and I definitely feel like she's going through physical abuse within a relationship. But I'm also wondering if this could even deal with her undergoing sexual abuse at a young age. But this is reinforced with her Saturn and her Sun squaring her ascendant. Okay, this aspect can produce a relationship that isn't all that it's cracked up to be to the public. Once again, I feel 100% that this is representative of her relationship with Lenny, but it could also be that way with Israel to a certain extent. And her Sun is conjoined to her Pluto. Her Pluto is at the 29th degree of Libra. There goes that 29 again. It's the crisis degree, the anoretic degree. And I mean, it could point towards a couple of things. So number one, it points towards, or it reinforces this theme of her being in very controlling relationships with men, even dysfunctional relationships. But it could also produce love triangles. Like I said, situations to where maybe she's even participating in a love triangle scenario, or at the very least her being cheated on. And I found that to be kind of interesting as well, because a lot of people gave both she and Israel flack after they got married, because they're like, oh well, why, like he was married earlier and he had just announced his divorce and now y'all are getting married. And people were suspecting that maybe there was some type of like, overlap in the timeline, which Israel did come out and he made it clear, like, no, like I had already divorced my wife before I started dealing with Adrienne. However, with this aspect, I'm wondering how true that is. Like I said, if she hasn't messed around with men who are already in relationships, I wouldn't be surprised if it was done to her, which is also another prominent theme of her chart. But yeah, there's going to be some third party interference there. This aspect also points towards her attracting men who naturally have problems with women, her attracting men who could even have anger issues. This aspect deals with her feeling the need to fuse her identity with that of her spouse, which can make her very codependent in that respect. And it could deal with her making trade-offs just to be in a relationship, almost like her being desperate to be in a relationship, because that 29th degree does deal with desperation. This aspect could even make her a doormat in her relationships. It can make her, I don't want to say the victim, but it can make her subject to like obsessive behavior. Maybe she has a partner who's very obsessive. They can be like, I would even say like on like worst case scenario, this can manifest as like stalking. But it does reinforce like the control thing, like her being controlled or dominated by a partner. And once again, abuse is not off of the table. Physical abuse is not off the table. So she just attracts dysfunctional relationships. Now, taking it back to her Mars and her Venus, which are at the 14th degree of Virgo. So they're forming an exact conjunction in her second house. This reinforces her, I want to say, like, kind of being like a doormat in the relationship, as it could point towards someone who is rather insecure, just within herself. But also it points towards her attracting men who are insecure as well. Men who are very controlling and highly critical of her, even down to her eating habits. Like, I wouldn't even be surprised. Now, I don't think Israel got any room to critique anybody on their eating habits, because, like I said, he's a rather plump lump. But I wouldn't even be surprised if in her relationship with Lenny, like, if he wasn't that controlling down to like what she ate, like, oh, you getting fat. And Adrienne is a thickums. Like, she has the capacity to kind of get thick, not fat, but she can get a little shapely, and that's thanks to her Taurus moon. But I wouldn't be surprised if Lenny was like, look, you need to be eating salads today. Are you sure you didn't work out today? You need to work out, because I saw you and you looking a little blah 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 blah. So that can produce that type of man. Honestly, a man who's all about pointing out what's wrong with her in efforts to quote unquote fix her or quote unquote help her. But this could also manifest as her feeling like or attracting partners that she has to help, in some capacity. Another manifestation of Mars conjoined to Venus in Virgo in the second house is her feeling like insecure just as a person, her feeling very insecure and catty. And this could manifest in her relationships with women, once again making me think about this whole 3LW thing. She could have relationships with men that are filled with lots of conflict. This does reinforce there being problems with money. Like I said before, that excessive spending, just like luxury, right? Loving luxury and just doing the most with your money. Even though Virgo in the second house tends to be like frugal, like they can be good with money, Mars conjoined to Venus here can produce a situation where potentially like it could get out of hand. She can kind of get out of hand if not checked. And maybe that's another reason why the men are criticizing her. Like, like I said before, this could be a source of contention in the relationship where the guy feels like he's going behind her, looking at how much she spends and, feeling like he has to like be the accountant. Virgo is all about that accountant energy. Okay. A checklist, checking what you're doing, what you're not doing with the money and everything else. This aspect could also point towards her attracting men who she feels indebted to, men who she feels like she has to serve them, as well as men who could even help possibly chip away at her self-esteem over time. It can point towards relationships that are filled with cattiness and conflict. And this also reinforces this theme of her having a partner who does help her out financially. And funny thing, with Virgo dealing with health, right? Taking it back to the health thing, this at placement could also point towards somebody who, like, she can either attract men who are very rigid about their fitness and health, or men who just don't give a goddamn about their fitness and health. Which is funny because looking at Israel, it's like, I'm just going to assume he just doesn't give a damn. But this could lead to some health issues for him. And especially with her Venus and Mars squaring Jupiter, that fifth house Jupiter. Jupiter is all about, like I said, excess. Jupiter in Sagittarius, right? It's all about excess. It's all about doing too much, overindulging. So yeah, he could potentially have some health problems if he doesn't get it together. This could also create a situation to where both she and her partner gain like happy weight in a relationship. In which, I mean, I remember looking at a few pictures of her while like when she had first got married to Israel. And like I said, there was a period where she actually retained, like she got thicker. Like it wasn't fat. She's never fat, but she started off in the industry noticeably thin. But there was a period of time where she had gotten like very voluptuous, like very thick. And so yeah, this could even just deal with her being with Israel, and they're just like, look, we're happy, we're having fun, we're gonna travel, we're gonna eat good, we're gonna drink good, this, that, and the third type of thing. So it could produce situations like that to where maybe she might even have to rein it in a little bit, or be, just a little bit more health conscious as well. This could also manifest in her. Maybe she's trying to get him, like, living a better health style, kind of getting him on the better, like on the up and up as his health is concerned. Now, this aspect can also, Venus, Mars squaring Jupiter, can also point towards a relationship that, as I stated before, is fueled with a lot of sex. And it can also deal with Adrienne being so much of an idealist that has blind faith in her partners. Like, to the point where maybe people on the outside looking in are like, you're like, girl, that's a little sketchy. Like, are you sure? And she's like, no, like, I love him. Like, he's amazing. Like, you just don't even understand. So there's that. Now, I had to take a look at Mr. Lenny Santiago's birth chart. He was born on August 21st, 1971, in New York, making him a Leo sun. So technically his sun would fall in her first house. Which, it could have created a situation to where basically he was the apple of her eye, pretty much. But interestingly enough, he has very prominent Aquarian energy, which is very consistent with her having Aquarius on the 7th house. His Mars is at the 14th degree of Aquarius, and he's also an Aquarius North Node. So, that's that on that. Something else that kind of is consistent with what I see in Adrienne's chart, he's a Virgo moon. Okay, his moon is actually conjoined to his Mercury in Virgo, which reinforces this theme of him being like very controlling and nitpicky. Virgo moon, especially in men, oh my God, they can be the worst when it comes to women because it's like they're never satisfied. These could be men who take on women as like fixer-up projects. Like, I'll date a woman and like I'm going to control everything about her, how she looks, once again, how she eats, what she eats. Another, or someone that's coming to mind to reinforce this example with a Virgo moon is B.I.G., the notorious B.I.G. And he actually, I don't think it's talked about as much, but he was very much like a womanizer. And he went about his relationship with Lil' Kim in that same manner, in the respect that he was very controlling of her, how she presented herself, and like really was like involved in a lot of the details as far as her career was concerned. So, I could see him being an asshole towards her. Like, period. Period. So, that's just that on that. I looked at Israel's chart as well. So let me pull that up. Israel Houghton, he's a Taurus, so it definitely makes sense why he's more rotund. And let me see what her moon, Adrienne's moon is. And her moon is at the 27th degree of Taurus. So actually, her moon is making an exact conjunction with his sun, which does deal with her feeling emotionally secure, like him making her feel emotionally secure. And with her being a Taurus moon, this could make Adrienne materialistic. So financial security could be a huge part of their relationship with one another. Her being a Taurus moon could also, it gives her just an innate desire for comfort and stability. Okay. And it also deals, of course, not to mention with her career in the music industry, especially with it being in her 10th house. And that's just that on that. Now some pretty interesting tea. Mr. Israel, his Mars is at the 7th degree of Aquarius. And he, too, is an Aquarius North Node, with his North Node at the 18th degree of Aquarius. So, it's once again very consistent with Adrienne's Aquarius on the 7th house. So, like I said, he could potentially play out a lot of those Aquarian 7th house traits that we previously discussed. However, As I always say, Aquarius is also the sign of homosexuality. And it makes me wonder whether or if Adrienne could possibly even attract men who are on the DL, gay men or bisexual men. And I say this because, well, first of all, your seventh house does deal with where you integrate your personality with the rest of the world. So it could either be traits that you exude yourself or traits that you project outwards onto others. Therefore, you could attract men who, encompass a lot of those seventh house characteristics. And seeing that, both of these men have very prominent Aquarian themes in their charts got me questioning a few things. And with Israel in particular, his Venus, which is at the first degree of Taurus, is squaring his Mars. Venus square Mars is another, I'm not going to say telltale, but it's another aspect. It's like a aspect that can point towards a gay man. Like it can make a gay man, it can make a man who is conflicted about his relationship with women. I mean, him having his Venus in Taurus does denote him attracting like trophy wives. And I would even translate that as beards. I could see him being with Adrienne because she's a pretty woman. But man, that Venus squaring his Aquarius Mars can deal with the guy who doesn't naturally get along with women, who's not naturally, I would even argue, who's not naturally that much into women, or could even be catty. Like he can see himself as one of the girls on the low. I mean, Venus in Taurus is all about producing relationships or even having values that align with quote unquote the status quo. Okay. And in negative aspects to his Mars and Aquarius, this could deal with that part or that element of his identity being at conflict with how he truly feels or even his own sexual desires. And Aquarius, of course, is the sign of homosexuality, but it's also about things that are not mainstream, right? Sexual urges that are not mainstream, things that deviate from the quote unquote status quo, the norm, things that might even go against his own personal values, especially with him being super religious. Another kind of dead giveaway is the fact that Adrienne's Chiron in Gemini is conjoined to Israel's sun, which could point towards there being some type of duplicit nature that he's operating under, Gemini is one of the more sexually fluid signs. So, I mean, it's a whole lot. I definitely got some questions. And now that I'm thinking back, it's like I've seen pictures of him where he's giving me like, yeah, I'm like, is that a lot of gloss on his lip? What's going on there? Yeah. And going back to her being the type of person, I mean, her Pluto at the 29th degree, Adrienne is willing to make certain trade-offs in order to be in a relationship. That's further reinforced with her South Node in her fifth house of Sagittarius. She could be someone who is very much like feels like it's like their destiny to be in a relationship. A lot of it could stem from religious values or how she was raised spiritually, feeling like she has to be in a relationship, or her really wanting children very badly. That's another manifestation. Which, side note, I feel like she might have some issues conceiving children, especially with her being a Leo ascendant and then that sun conjoined to Saturn in Scorpio. She might have even had an abortion at some point, or even lost like a miscarriage. It can also play out as her having infertility issues or some type of trauma or dysfunction as it pertains to her womb. So yeah. But with her North Node in her 11th house of Gemini, Adrienne is definitely supposed to be out here exploring her options, pursuing her dreams, and even really just doing a lot of traveling and getting a lot of different, gaining or learning a lot of different perspectives from other people, spreading herself out as opposed to committing herself to just one person, one situation. And that, I mean, I guess it's not to say that she can't be married or can't be in a successful relationship, but I feel like, especially based off her chart, she's always spent a lot of time being in one. Like literally her life has revolved around men, dating men, and in this case getting married. Because I even remember before Lenny Santiago, she was dating what's his name, Rob Kardashian, before he gained all the weight. She was dating, and that's when Rob was fine, actually. So, and people say she's dated a lot of guys within the industry. Like, she's been kind of like a serial dater. So I feel like she hasn't really tapped into her Gemini North Node, that 11th house North Node. But that's just me. So yeah, y'all drop down in the comment section below. Let me know what you guys thought about this reading, as well as any suggestions that you may have for future readings. And as always, make sure you practice unconditional self-love so that you can love others. And until next time, I holla.